It's that time of the year again. If you're a student about to head to the US to study at an American university, you must be in the middle of applying for a visa. It's a stressful process, but don't worry. Last year, despite the pandemic, a record number of 62,000 student visas were issued. This year, there will be 20 to 25% more slots, with tens of thousands opening up between June 1st and July 15th. ThePrint sat down with Don Heflin, Minister Counselor for Consular Affairs at the US Embassy, to get some tips on how to approach your visa interview, when to book your visa slots, and what to do if your student visa is rejected.
There are three different kinds of student visas. The one that most people are concerned about is the F visa. That's for students going to undergraduate or graduate school. There's also the J exchange visitor visa, which we have fewer applicants for, but they're important. That's people going to medical school, for instance, or certain kinds of exchange programs. And then there's the M, which is technical schools. We don't get many of those from India, but we do get some. And usually when I'm talking about student visa processing or season, we mean all three of them put together, F, M, and J.
How much money should a student set aside for their visa application?
Students should be prepared to show us that they and their family can pay the amount that's shown on the I-20 form that came from the school. Now, we don't concentrate on this in every case. It may be that you bring that information and you don't get asked about it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. We understand that Indian families will borrow to send their kid to university. We understand that Indian families will go and approach an uncle to help out, to invest in the kid. And we get that. Just show us how you really, really want to finance it.
Right. And what about for the application process itself? Because I know that there's a service fee.
There's a service fee that you have to pay before your student visa interview. You go online and you find an open slot and you follow the prompts on the computer to book the interview. You have to have gotten an I-20 form from your school before that happens. And because of the way that the student visa process works, you can't apply months and months in advance. The I-20 is only good for 120 days. And you don't want to apply too late either because the school has a date by which they expect you to be there.
So say you get your I-20 in the mail, how much time do you have to apply for your visa?
You won't get it until within a few months before the start date. So just any time after you get it. I advise people, book your appointment as soon as you get your I-20.
How does one go about getting a visa appointment?
Okay, so you go online and you look, there'll be some available. Now, we opened up tens of thousands recently, and they're for the period June 1st to July 15th. Here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to open up just as many, tens of thousands, to cover the period July 15th to August 15th. In addition, there'll be a little bit open each week. As we come to 1 week, we'll look at the next week and say, oh, it looks like we could have done another 200, and we'll add on. So my advice to people who really want an appointment is check in about twice a day. Don't check obsessively. Don't refresh your screen all the time, so that'll get you locked out. But about twice a day, check in and see if we've opened some more.
Do you have any guidelines on how to approach the interview?
This is really the most important part. It's probably the most important question you've asked me. So you go through the process. You manage to get one of the tens of thousands of slots we've opened up. You've got your paperwork in order. You come in and you talk to the vice consul. And what he wants or she wants to know is, why do you want to go to this school? Why do you want to study this particular field of study? Why does this make sense for you? And I can't tell you how many people have done all this preparatory work, and then they come in and they don't answer that question. They really just tell us facts about the school that we could have looked up on Google. I'm not sure why this is. I think maybe some of the recruiters and agents tell people to do that. It's the conventional wisdom. That's not what we want to hear. In the US, we call this the elevator pitch. It's like you've seen this on some TV shows. You get on an elevator with a wealthy businessman. He's going to get off at the 8th floor. You've got that much time to tell him why he should invest in you. Same with us. You got a short amount of time. I know it puts a lot of pressure on. But what I always tell people is, one evening there was a conversation around the kitchen table, and you and your parents decided where you want to go and why. Tell us that. Or put another way, that discussion may have taken some while, there may have been some back and forth, but the next day your best friend said, have you decided? And you said, yes, my parents and I decided I'm going to such and such university to study such and such field, and here's why. Just repeat that to us. That's what we want to hear. There are no 100% right or wrong answers. In the Indian context, we understand for 18-year-old undergrads or even a 22-year-old grad student, families are concerned about they're going to big cities or big universities, maybe want them to go to a smaller school. That may be part of the reason that school was chosen. That's fine. It may be you're going because you have an auntie who lives nearby, and the four schools you looked at, your parents feel more comfortable with you being there, where she can check in on you on the weekends. It may be you had a cousin or a neighbor down the street who went to this school and studied something similar to what you want to and had a really good experience. That's great. I mean, that's exactly how American kids choose their schools. Just tell us all that.
There were a record number of visas issued last year. Is that a similar trend this year?
We don't know yet. We'll start the interviews tomorrow. We've opened up a lot more appointments this year than last year, probably about 20 to 25% more. So we're hoping that we'll issue more. It all depends on the group of students. We had a really good group of students last year. We had a lot of people that wanted to go in 2020 and couldn't because of COVID. So we're hoping we get a good mix of students this year and that we can exceed the 62,000.
What happens if a student gets their visa rejected?
Okay, so last year, if you got your visa rejected, you didn't have a lot of options because we opened up all the appointments at once and they all got filled. So if you got rejected and you walked out and you went home to your laptop computer and said, I want to book another appointment, there wasn't another appointment there for you. The only exception was that students really shied away from the appointments that opened between August 15th and August 31st. It's kind of late. Some schools won't let you come that late. So that's where people who got refused early in the summer tended to head, was to try and get an appointment during the latter half of August. So it's going to be similar this year. We're going to hold back the August 15th to August 31st slots until pretty late in the game. And then we'll open them. And if you got refused in the summer, or if you've been refused previously, you'll be able to get one of those, well, you could try to get one of those slots. Now, I always tell students, don't worry about this in advance. Our refusal rate is pretty low for first-time applicants. The numbers show that your best chances on your first application. Don't be worrying about whether you'll get a second application.
Are there any major changes in the way that you're processing visas this year?
No, it's pretty much the same as last year. The difference a little bit is the timeline. Last year, we would have liked to have opened up before June 15th because the more weeks you have, the more you can do. But the Delta wave of COVID prevented that. There were shutdowns all around the country. We were halfway shut down. So we actually did all those visas that we did, the bulk of them between June 15th and August 15th, and we opened all the appointments at once. We've learned some lessons from that. We're stretching it out further. We're now going to go from June 1st on. And we're not opening all the appointments at once. We're doing them in two big groups and then some smaller groups. Partly because we crashed the worldwide computer system last year, which wasn't good. But partly because one of the reasons we had such a good student pool last year was by waiting till June 15th, most of the good students had their I-20s in hand. That was probably true of a lot of people in mid-May when we opened the first group of appointments, but there are other students waiting for their I-20s. They made their decision a little late. School made its decision a little late. So we're going to open, it'll probably be shortly before June 15th this year. So we're hoping that by doing that, a lot of good students going to good schools are getting their I-20s and can come in and apply.
Okay. The application process can be quite stressful. What are things students should keep in mind as they prepare?
The biggest thing you can do is remember what I told you about how to do the interview. Be thinking about that. Talk to your best friend about it. Talk to your parents. Maybe practice a little. When you come in that day, relax. Yes, you're nervous. Yes, this is your big chance. You're probably only going to get the one interview. It's probably your best shot at success. But we issued 62,000 people in a similar situation to you last year. If you give a good interview, you're going to be one of the ones that get issued this year probably. Okay? So just take a deep breath and think, why do I want to go to this school? Why do I want to study this discipline? Why this town or this area of the country? How does this help me in the future? What do I plan to do with this degree? And be ready to spit that out in about a minute. So Student Visa Day, June 7th. Listen, we really like issuing visas to students. It's really one of our favorite things to do all year long. So we're going to have a little fun on June 7th. All across the country, all 5 consulates are going to have Student Visa Day. We're going to have the top ranking officials of the embassy and the consulates come down and help us do interviews. I, this weekend, found my favorite university jersey, which I'll be wearing that day, and many of the officers will also. So if you're fortunate enough to be one of the ones selected to have an interview that day, or if you booked a slot that day, it's going to be a lot of fun.
So take a deep breath, prepare an elevator pitch for your visa interview, and check for open slots at least twice a day.